On Saturday, I invited K. Shriniwas Rao, head of sports content at the Times Group and arguably one of India's best sports reporters, on the morning brief. Hi Srini, very warm welcome. We were talking just after India's stunning victory against Australia in the ICC Women's World Cup semi-finals. And in true KSR style, he told me this.
The first thing that occurred to me today is the anniversary of Lakshman 281 at Eden Gardens. You remember that famous Rahul Dravid BVS Lakshman partnership? Right. So India had stopped Australia after 15 consecutive test wins. And if anybody's documented Indian cricket post turn of the century, they'll tell you that it is with that match that India's test fortunes changed forever. Now look at the irony. In the semi-final, India beat Australia to stop them after 15 consecutive ODI wins. Are we at the cusp of a transformation that will rewrite history? Maybe the victory in the final on second probably could just be that 1983 moment that women's cricket needs.
And then on the Sunday of 2nd November, this happened.
A victory that will ignite a nation! It will create a legacy for generations of young women to follow.
It was indeed historic. India's women cricket team finally lifted their first ever ODI World Cup trophy on home soil, ending decades of close calls and heartbreak. But that triumph did not come easy. From pandemic disruptions and shocking collapses to coaching shakeups and rising young stars, India's journey to the top has not been smooth. So, in today's episode, we pack the systemic challenges that women's cricket still face in India. The sport continues to grapple with a shallow talent bench, inconsistent revenue and marketing models and incentives, and a women's Premier League that's yet to live up to its promise. Will the World Cup win change all this? Let's find out. It's Tuesday, the 4th of November. I'm Anirban Chowdhury. This is the Morning Brief. Women's cricket in India has come a long way since its first official test match in 1976. Then, pioneers of the game like Shanta Rangaswamy and Diana Edulji played for passion, not money. The turning point only came in 2006 when the Women's Cricket Association merged with the BCCI, paving the way for new stars like Mithali Raj and Jhulan Goswami to come into the limelight. Mithali led India to World Cup finals in 2005 and again in 2017, where a close loss to England sparked a nationwide conversation and finally some awareness about women in a game which is second religion in India. In 2020, India blazed its way to the T20 World Cup final. But then the pandemic halted that momentum. For almost a year, the team did not play a match. A rusty return in 2025 followed, marked by an ODI series defeat at home to South Africa. It exposed India's deep reliance on veterans and a lack of ready replacements. This inconsistency became a theme in the next 5 years. There were flashes of brilliance, like breaking Australia's ODI winning streak in 2021 and winning silver at the 2022 Commonwealth Games. But these instances were far outnumbered by defeats. The team was knocked out of the 2022 ODI World Cup, and a freak run-out cost them a T20 World Cup final spot in 2023. Here's Srini.
See, the last team to beat Australia was also India, despite their 15 consecutive wins. And these have been flashes in the pan. Like, there have been occasions, rare occasions, when we have literally kind of punched above our weight, the top order or quite a talented pool actually that has come together and delivered. And these girls will be the first to tell you, disappointment is what has been written across performances, kind of from time to time. The talent that this Indian team has carried across formats and the results that it has managed to deliver, have been so lopsided because, the victories that have come very rarely have not really justified what this team is actually capable of. I've been seeing the struggles of women's cricket on and off. I have seen the space struggle when women in this country who wanted to push cricket forward and kind of come under the aegis of the BCCI, the struggle that they had to go through just to convince the men's ecosystem that they want to be part of this. It wasn't easy at all. But
what would you call the turning point in convincing BCCI that women's cricket was absolutely worth it?
I think it was Mr. Sharad Pawar's administration that said, all right, let us bring women's cricket under the BCCI umbrella and let BCCI actually put an ecosystem, put a domestic structure in place for women's cricket. It all happened when there were some really capable administrators in Indian cricket. And, being from Mumbai, where some of the stalwarts of women's cricket kind of came from, they had that proximity to the ecosystem where those struggles could be highlighted. And I think that's where the flicker of hope first began. And from there on, it's been a slow, arduous journey. Nothing has come overnight.
One of the few things that have come to women's cricket is some pay parity.
So when I'm talking about pay parity, what happened 3 years ago was BCCI said, all right, there should be no gender bias. So what we pay men's cricket is exactly what we should be paying women's cricket, where BCCI is concerned, not the Women's Premier League. Now, honestly, when this first happened, what is the thought that came to my mind? Oh God, this is a political move. You're just trying to kind of create a headline that's going to make you look good. I was of the belief that, when women's cricket is not earning money of that value, how can you pay them back? Like, I can't be getting a salary that doesn't sit with how my industry is doing, right? I mean, it has to be in line with the revenues that my company is making. So from that standpoint, women's cricket was not making money. Today, if I were to look at this in hindsight, I think it was actually a good move. Now, why was it a good move? Because, all right, BCCI is not here to be looking at revenue building exercises or business models where the national team is concerned. BCCI is free to look at revenue models and business models where a private T20 league like Women's Premier League is concerned. So from that standpoint, it was about pushing the women forward and making them believe that they belonged at the same level as men's cricket. And in that, I think pay parity did a fine job.
But beyond inclusion in the ages of BCCI and pay parity, and mind you, this does not include league auctions or brand sponsorship money, beyond these, not much has happened.
So, if you ask me to kind of give you a big picture around how women's cricket has progressed over the last 3 years, yes, it has managed to tick a couple of boxes. But again, largely, it has failed to tick a lot of other important boxes. Let me put it that way.
Now, the Women's Premier League launched in March 2023 with great fanfare, bringing India's women's cricket a more professional T20 franchise model and significant investment. On paper, it was a game changer. Higher paychecks, international stars, and a broadcast push that promised both exposure and development. But its impact has been limited. Despite big names, splashy auctions, and a boost in visibility, the league runs for only a few weeks a year, offering too little high-level game time to truly develop domestic talent. Key structural issues like weak pathways to grassroots, limited year-round competition, and uneven player depth remain unaddressed. Commercial traction has also been modest, with franchise revenues and long-term sponsorship still uncertain. In short, the WPL was a great start, but is it the transformative engine that Indian women's cricket really needs?
No. From a revenue standpoint, has it helped women's cricket build an industry for itself? No. From a marketing standpoint, from a brand standpoint, has it done enough to create the right and necessary buzz around WPL? No.
But why hasn't it brought substantial money to women's cricket? If there's one thing Premier Leagues do, it's make everyone rich.
When Women's Premier League was launched, the media rights were sold at 950 crore for 5 years. It was bought by Jio Cinema. I don't think there were any other bidders. The second bid that came in was Pittance. Pittance, less than 100 CR, which Disney had put just because they were under an obligation to participate in the process, which clearly means that no other broadcaster were actually interested in picking the rights for women's cricket, right? Now, there is no way, unless Jio Cinema wants to spend that same kind of money again, which to my mind doesn't make any sense. Now, in a scenario like that, what exactly happens to the revenue pool in Indian cricket? Now, I'm telling you, why am I saying this? Because the entire apparatus that surrounds the revenue model in Women's Premier League is built around this broadcast rights money. Tomorrow, if that revenue falls and actually comes down to the kind of bid that Disney brought to the table, which was less than 100 crores, mind you, would these franchisees be willing to spend as much going forward? What is BCCI's plan B? Have they even kind of moved or kind of walked their first step in that direction? I don't think there's been any planning yet. To sum up what my thoughts are around women's cricket, well, I don't see enough being done in terms of marketing the property. I don't see enough being done in terms of elevating the property to the next level. And I don't see BCCI doing enough to figure out what their plan B should be should the broadcast revenues fall, which they will.
And that is sad. Also, because Premier Leagues are marketing bandwagons for individual talent. They catapult them to stardom.
Because women's cricket is in desperate need of this marketing, which at least men's cricket is not. It took an innings of a lifetime for half of this country to actually know that Jemima has been a prodigy ever since she started playing the game. This is a very, very big country, and for Jemima to become a brand, more has to be done than wait for an innings of a lifetime alone. And I think that's where Indian cricket is missing the point.
What do you think of the talent bench, and especially are there enough players coming from smaller towns, academies?
I'm glad you're asking this question, because this is the most important talking point in women's cricket, and I'll tell you why I'm saying this. I'm saying this because the first class structure in women's cricket is dead. There is no grassroots structure in women's cricket.
The other problem, Srini tells me, is that all cricketing talent now is identified at IPLs. While that's great for men's cricket, it makes it difficult for women to get into the sport, especially the traditional red ball, long overs format of cricket.
There is no tournament happening. There is no private 50-over league, and there is no private test league, a fancy league that's happening. There is no Ranji Trophy in place for women. So where exactly are women kind of flourishing in the game, where the selectors actually have an opportunity to sit, watch, and discover new talent at the grassroots level? I'm not seeing any of that happen. Right? Now, other than that, are you telling me that only if a girl is capable of making it to a WPL franchise, can she actually play the game and sustain and earn from it? Are you telling me that any girl who just wants to continue playing red ball cricket in this country doesn't need to earn from the game? Do you know how much money BCCI makes? And is that money filtering down to the grassroots level equally? I don't think so. Because at the end of the day, we are not doing enough to help the game flourish. We were then busy only building a revenue model around the game. And that's where the whole difference lies. It's really unfortunate.
Here's the bright side. Of course, corporates are finally putting skin in the women's cricket game. One of the key names from India Inc. to do this is JSW Group, which is trying to build sporting ecosystems as much as teams. So, next, I spoke to JSW Sports CEO Divyanshu Singh. Hi Divyanshu, very warm welcome to the Morning Brief.
Hi.
We're talking just one day after India's historic victory. Now, JSW has been, one of the biggest forces from India Inc. in pushing not just cricket but women's sport overall. What's been your biggest learning from running a women's team and also overall backing women in cricket?
Okay, so one of the things that really stands out when you look at India's performance, I think over the last 2 years, is that similar to what we all used to see in I remember in 10th and 12th class results, the girls always used to do better than the boys. And when it comes to sport and that to sport at the international level, the girls have consistently been doing really, really well. You take the Olympics, for example, you take so many of the national teams. Even if you take sports like football, the women's are ranked higher than the men's. I think the only point that we are trying to drive here is that when provided with the right capital, with the right opportunities, women will shine and excel in any field. And sport is one of those fields that really stands out because it provides a level playing field.
Right, absolutely. Let's get to some numbers, Divyanshu. If you could tell me how many grassroots players are being scouted, trained, and supported through your system right now as we speak.
Got it. So we have if I'm talking larger of what all we do in terms of women's in sport, of course, we have franchise in women's cricket in the WPL, which is in partnership with the GMR Group. We also have a franchise in the Hockey League, which is hailing from Haryana, which contributes the maximum amount of female talent to the Indian Olympic team as well. And then we have a massive Olympic program in which close to 40% of our athletes are women as well. And in fact, majority of talent, even when it comes to women's sport, is coming from rural India as well. One also has to accept that I think being a professional women athlete is a lot more tougher than being a professional men's athlete in India. And hence these athletes deserve everything that they get when they achieve laurels like what happened yesterday.
How do you respond to critique that, the only platform for spotting young cricketing talent these days is the Premier Leagues? And since it's just WPL for women and, you hardly see Ranjis, etc., there is this block that the best intentioned corporates or organizations would face when it comes to spotting, talent in women's cricket. How do you react to that and how are you sort of dealing with it?
Okay. So I think what leagues do is that they end up providing a platform for corporate investment, right? So that's one good thing that comes out of it. Having said that, leagues are not the only platform through which new talent is scouted or unearthed. Yes, it facilitates it, and it's also very different for different sport. What is really standing out and the kind of improvements that we are seeing right now is that the pay parity is improving. Visibility for women athletes has also surged a lot. But it is also a hard truth that women athletes still receive under 10% of the total sports sponsorship spends in India, which we are hopeful that on the back of performances like yesterday, now we'll see that big change from corporate India as well. And now would be the time, I think, to walk the talk.
Could you quantify how much JSW has invested in women's cricket in India yet and your future plans as well?
So our investment in women's cricket has been on the back of the WPL franchise. We also own a franchise in Women's Hockey League. And we also invest extensively in our Olympic program where 40% of the athletes are women athletes. Some investments are purely from a not-for-profit perspective, which is the Olympic program, whereas the investment into franchises are via our for-profit vertical. And while these franchises right now are still a while away when it comes to profitability, but we are confident that these are long-term investments and in times to come, they will reap good rewards.
But can you tell me about future investments or is that a number that you can't disclose?
I think it's also depends on opportunities, and it also, I think, varies from sport to sport. While there are individual Olympic sports in which the focus ends up being purely on development and performance. Just this year on Women's Day, we started an initiative and venture called JSW Inspire, which was aimed towards, I think, aiming awareness level about women in sport, talking about the women in sport business in India. How is it that we can also accelerate investments when it comes to women in sport?
Would it accelerate your investment as well, yesterday's win? Or is it as per plan?
It is as per plan. I mean, we have been one of the most aggressive and bullish investors when it comes to Indian sports. So for us, it just gives us a reason to believe that I think we've been on the right track.
Right. You spoke about WPL. Are you sort of happy with the way it's grown? Do you think it's doing enough for increasing marketability of women players? I'm sure after this win, things, like you said, will be accelerated. But are you happy with the way that it's shaped up?
Yes, very much. The WPL started in 2023 with 5 teams. Today, the last edition of the WPL was watched by approximately 170 million viewers. One of the biggest things that it does is that it creates a clear commercial pathway, more franchises, more venues, more tickets. And it also provides a very, very important platform for young talent, I think to come forward, and provides that pathway to play for India as well. And going forward, it can also do a lot in terms of having more engagement. I think while currently we are approximately like a 1-month league, what is it that we can do for the rest of the 10 months? The franchises will also start evolving in terms of having a larger presence, be it academies, be it grassroots programs. So that's the ownership which is on us as well equally.
Finally, Divyanshu, do you think the win will get commercial traction for women's cricket?
I think what the win should do is hopefully bring in a good change when it comes to the Indian sponsorship report, which unfortunately has not changed a lot in the last decade.
Of course.
Fundamentally, what remains the hard truth about Indian sport is that 90% of the revenues is cricket, and that is dominated by a particular sport, by a particular generation and by a particular profile of sports stars. And women in sport as a sector that way has been very marginalized in terms of investment, right? So now with the creation of new heroes, Demi, Shefali, Harmanpreet, Smriti, now these are new heroes which have been created in Indian sport yesterday. They are new role models, and that should see new investments, that should see new sponsors, and that should bring in the momentum and a big change. Hopefully what transpired yesterday will be a big moment for not only women's cricket, but also women's sport in India.
Like I said, we were talking to Srini a day before the finals, and I asked him what would happen to women's cricket if India lifted the World Cup. I let his response be the final word for this episode.
It could be a start, potential of a revolution in women's cricket. It is to that extent that I see potential and possibilities should India win this final. We are a nation hungry for success, and women's cricket is no different. They are an aspiring platform. They have done enough to get here. They have gone through their share of struggles. I was so pleasantly surprised when I went to DY Patil. I was absolutely thrilled to see a crowd of literally 32,500 people in the ground, in the stadium, cheering for Team India. Fantastic stuff. Fantastic. Absolutely phenomenal stuff. You know that there is a certain level of madness that prevails. And, well, a title win will only further ignite this madness, which is exactly what India and women's cricket needs right now.
That's it for today. You were listening to this episode on The Morning Brief. It was produced by Vinay Joshi and Rajas Naik, sound designed by Amrit Reggie. A new episode of The Morning Brief drops every Tuesday, Thursday and Friday, wherever you get your podcasts. Corner Office Conversation, where we talk to the most interesting business and thought leaders from India and the world, every alternate Monday on your favorite listening platform. Stay tuned. The external clip used in this episode belongs to its owner. Credits are mentioned in the description.